Robbie, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Rick. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. This is introduction to some of the newer Aventage receivers, as well as we're going to cover just a few of the MusicCast products and kind of how they intertwine with the AV receivers and how everything works together. So I want to just do a quick agenda for you guys. There's a brief Yamaha story and history I want to cover with you guys just to make sure we're kind of all up to the same level. We're going to do an overview of the new models, including the RX-A 80 series Avantage receivers. There are some new features inside of here that are very unique to Yamaha, and I want to make sure you guys are aware of those. And one of those is Surround AI, or Surround Artificial Intelligence. It's a new receiver feature this year. It's only on the 1080 and higher, and it's a really, really nice DSP mode that analyzes everything in real time and provides the best DSP effects possible for the system. So we'll make sure we cover that. Another new feature this year is we do have dedicated HDMI Zone 2 outputs on certain models, 1080 and up. Want to make sure you guys are aware of those so you can utilize them. We are going to cover just a really quick overview of what MusicCast is and what it does, and then we'll get into some of the new features and how they work with the AV receivers, because all of our new MusicCast receivers this year have something called MusicCast Surround, and that allows you to utilize the in a 5.1 system, it allows you to utilize the rear speakers to be wireless using some of our new MusicCast 20 or MusicCast 50 speakers. I'm also going to give you guys a brief update on third-party control just to make sure whatever you guys are using, you know it's going to work. So we'll get ahead and get started right now. Just really quick, I want to make sure you guys are aware Yamaha is the world's largest music instrument manufacturer. We are 25% of the global music sales year over year, and that's a huge number in the industry, and I don't even know what a close second would be, but they're definitely far, far away from us. So 25% of the world's music instrument sales each year are Yamaha. We are the world's largest music educator. We have Yamaha music schools in almost every single country, all over the world. Industry leader in live sound, a lot of prestigious concert venues. The most recent one would be Carnegie Hall, are all Yamaha gear in the commercial audio world. So very, very important in that. And we have a lot of engineers working for us. Just want to remind you guys that all of our stuff is done in-house. We have Yamaha engineers that are Yamaha employees doing nothing but Yamaha products. They don't do anything else. They don't work for a secondary company and we outsource their information. We do all of this in-house. And because of that, we have a lot of patents and a lot of nice technologies that are unique to Yamaha. All right, so let's jump into the RX-A 80 series. This is going to be 2018 models, and one of the things that you can tell is on the 8 series, the 80, that 8 actually is the calendar year that the products came out with. So if you guys aren't familiar with Yamaha model numbers, you'll find the 80 series came out this year. Last year in 2017 was the 70 series. In 2016, we had the 60 series. Going back, this is actually our 9th generation of product. So we've been doing this for 9 years now with the Aventage products. So it's really easy to tell. A couple new things this year on the RX-A 780 and above, you're going to find a new style remote control. I really like this remote. It's much more simplified, much easier to utilize. We've got a lot of positive feedback from both consumers and from dealers on how easy this remote is comparatively to previous models. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. And we also redid the graphical user interface this year, so you'll find the GUI as cleaner, a lot easier to navigate, and was a nice refresh from previous models. And just on the user experience side, we also updated that feature we were talking about earlier, Surround AI or Surround Artificial Intelligence on the RX-A 1080 and higher. Make sure you guys understand these are not necessarily all new features, but just key points of the Yamaha products. They all have YPAO or YPOW. This is our acoustic calibration that comes with the system. So you have a little microphone you plug in and you can go through the calibration. It will automatically detect the number of speakers, the equalization for each of them, including the subwoofer. It will tell you how many there are, how far away they are, and it will do a whole lot of other nice things on there. So make sure you guys are using that microphone on each and every install. It'll make it a lot easier for you and gives you a good starting point even if you want to calibrate it further yourself. New feature is MusicCast Surround. Again, this is the ability to have wireless surround speakers in a 5.1 scenario. So if I had, a basic 5.1 AV receiver inside of a bedroom or living room, you would easily be able to utilize rear speakers being wireless instead of having to hardwire them. Save you guys time, make it a little bit easier for customers who can't or won't put in surround speakers that are wired. And we are also introducing a wireless subwoofer that will work with the system. It also functions with MusicCast Surround, so I can have 5.1 and I can have both wireless surround speakers as well as a wireless subwoofer. And we'll cover that more later. As far as performance upgrades, we did add 5 gigahertz networking this year, so you'll see 2 antennas on the back of all of our receivers instead of just one as previous years. It will be faster for doing shorter connections. Next room will have a lower latency when you're doing linking. It does have the dual antennas inside. We also updated the DACs inside of them, so they're now 384 kilohertz. Not something you're going to need and require on a normal basis, but just realize that we're constantly improving and trying to get the best sound possible. And one of those things we can do is upgrade the DACs. When we did that, we actually are now capable of doing quad DSD is the term for it, or DSD 11.2. So any kind of DSD file that you have or want, you could actually play through it because of the higher end DACs that are now available. As always, we have most common streaming services you're going to find. One of the newer ones just to be aware of is SiriusXM Music for Business. This is now available on all previous MusicCast models as well. So if you guys are doing like commercial work, make sure you're aware of SiriusXM Music for Business. There's actually an option if you sign up to be a dealer through them. You can do recurring revenue, or you can sign up the clients yourself and actually get an income from that. You'll get a refund from that, setting them up as a SiriusXM Music for Business user. We do have just kind of a general thing, a setting on all of our receivers, or a web page on all of our receivers that you can access from anywhere on the network from any of your devices. So it could be a Windows or Mac computer, it can be a tablet or phone, anything like that, anything with a web browser. If you just type in the IP address of the receiver, you will get this little web control screen on here, and this is updated this year. This is a new design. A lot easier to go through and stuff. So you can go through and set static IP address as well as do a backup of all of your settings on the receiver. Very, very easy to do. There's a few other things you can tinker with as well, but those are kind of the key ones for you. Starting off on the RXA 680, one thing that is new this year is a phono input, and all these things that are new is just stuff that you're going to find in red on the screen here. So a phono input is new, so now all of our Aventage receivers have phono input. They all have MusicCast Surround with a subwoofer capability. They did add the additional streaming services, including SiriusXM Music for Business. We're always looking to add additional services, so be on the lookout for that. And just another thing to be aware of is as far as control systems, we've had Control 4 for a little while. We've done RTI since the beginning of the year, but we've just added Alon G support for that, all MusicCast devices. So if you're looking for IP control through the MusicCast devices, like our receivers, soundbars, wireless speakers, anything like that, Alon now offers that as well. Just a quick comparison, the back panel of this year's model, the RXA 680 versus last year's RXA 670, the only difference you're going to find really is the phono preamp input. So just be aware of that on the bottom left-hand side. Moving up to the RXA 780, this is just the next model up in the Aventage line. And what you'll find new this year is pre-out jacks for the front, left, and right channels. So normally we just give you subwoofer output as a pre-out. You can go to your powered sub. In this case, what we want to do is give you this ability for front, left, and right. So if I have a really nice 2-channel amplifier that I want to use with my big tower left and right speakers, I can do that with this model. I don't have to step up to a higher version, and that makes it kind of easy to do. We're going to find that new remote control in here as well. I'll show you that. And on that remote control, it has 8 Scene Plus buttons. And I'll show you a little bit more about those in just a minute. Here's that new remote control. You'll see the old one on the left-hand side and the new one on the right-hand side. A lot fewer buttons, a lot easier to navigate. We're trying to restrict people from pressing wrong buttons or from having too many choices. So we're really, really lowering that. Of course, the discrete commands are always still available through IP, IR, and RS-232 if the receiver has that. So you don't have to worry about discrete control. That's obviously still there. But for the consumer remote control that comes with it, we do want to try to make it as simple as possible for them. So it's a redesigned remote control, feels nice in the hand, works really well, and you see there on the top side, it does have 8 scene commands now. And remember, these buttons will, with a single press, it can turn on the receiver. It will go to the correct input you want it to. It'll go to the DSP mode that you want to. And in addition, it does a lot of other things. It can recall volume levels. You can recall which HDMI outputs are live for the upper models. There's a lot of things that you can do with these scene commands. So I really recommend you take a look at those in the menu. One other thing you can do now is also recall a favorite for your network volume. So if I were going to Pandora and I wanted to set a jazz station, I can do that on station number 1, scene 1. If I wanted to do a rock station, I could do that on 2. I can do a heavy metal station on number 3, and so on and so forth. They can all be different presets from the network. So one can be for internet radio, one could be for Pandora, one could be for Sirius XM. Anything that can be set as a network preset can be recalled with these 8 different buttons. So even if you don't use them for day-to-day movie watching or anything like that, they can easily be recalled for your network favorites. So be aware of that. And here's just a quick picture of the new graphic interface that we have on here. It's a lot more linear. So it starts on the left-hand side, and everything that you see that is necessary for that particular menu is always displayed. So it's not something that's buried in a submenu like it was previously. It's a lot cleaner now. It's a lot easier to navigate through. So please take a look at that. That's again on the RX-A 780 and above, has the new graphical user interface. Couple new features that we did offer is input skip and DSP skip. So remember, if we go back a screen, I can show you that input. Just jumped around for a second. Give me 1 second here. Okay, go back to the remote control. If you notice, it has input left and right or program up and down. It no longer has the discrete buttons for those DSP and those input commands. And because of that, it makes it a little bit easier to navigate. And because you can now skip the different inputs on here, it allows you to actually just cycle through what the customer has. Same thing with programs. DSP effects can be removed and hidden on there if you'd like it to do that. So that can all be done in the new GUI menu at this point. And here's just a quick picture of the back panel of the RX-A 780 versus the last year's 770. Again, you're going to find that not only the pre-out for the subwoofer, but you're going to find a pre-out for left and right channels as well. So again, you can add an external amplifier for that. Also this year, we did have an additional HDMI output that is a mirrored output, or what we call zone B output for HDMI. So what it does is it mirrors the main zone, and anything the main zone is doing, you're going to find listed on that as well. So what I like to use this for is a common area television, something like a kitchen, something like a bar, something like a patio, where it's going to be the same source all the time. What's nice about this is, although it acts kind of similar to a HDMI splitter, just a 1-to-2 splitter, it's nice, one, that it's built into the receiver, so it's one less device that can fail. And HDMI, we're always looking to reduce the total number of devices that are connected in the chain, so just to alleviate any kind of problems. But one thing else it does is that it allows the receiver in HDMI output number 1 to take the full surround sound audio that's coming in from your Blu-ray, your DirecTV, your cable box, whatever it is. And then it also, in HDMI Zone B, it will send the video as well as a downmixed two-channel PCM audio signal out to that second HDMI TV. So in other words, your kitchen TV will give two channels of audio PCM, and your surround sound system will get your full surround sound, Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, whatever it is it's coming through, it will always get that, and the second output will only get a two-channel downmixed PCM signal. And that's really convenient because in that secondary kitchen TV, you're not going to be able to decode the full audio format anyway, so having it downmixed at the receiver is kind of nice. All right, let's step up to the RX-A 880. You'll notice little cosmetic things on the front panel. For example, we have that little drop-down door that hides some of the lesser used buttons. You're also going to find just a little bit cleaner interface throughout. So it does have the YPOW as well, just the same as all the other receivers, but this is the first one that has the multi-point, meaning I can calibrate up to 8 different locations inside that room. It does have a full pre-out for 7.2 channel, and that should give you everything you need for running external amplifications on that. Here's a quick back panel shot of the RX-A 880 versus the 870. To be honest with you, it's a little bit more stuff involved than previous models, but it's not going to be a whole lot different year over year. For example, you're still going to find the RS-232 port on this model up on the top right. You're still going to find all the regular inputs and outputs that are there on the receiver. So not a lot changed back panel-wise on this one year over year. Just a little bit cosmetic. We did have all HDMI outputs inputs are HDCP 2.2 this year. That's a minor thing you're going to find, but again, it's just little changes year over year. Let's jump up to the RX-A 1080, and this is where Aventage really kicks into high gear. You're going to find a better chassis design. You're going to find a lot more processing power inside, a lot more capabilities on there especially for the custom world. So if you're looking at a higher end installation, this is really where you want to start with to give it the best capabilities for your customer. Big feature this year is Surround AI. Again, that artificial intelligence DSP mode in there really makes it easy for the customer to just sit back and enjoy the system, as opposed to trying to figure out what buttons to press or what mode to be in order to make everything work properly. Another thing this year is there are now 3 HDMI outputs total on the receiver on the 1080 and higher. You're going to find one dedicated for HDMI Zone 2 output. So before it was 2 outputs and you could change one of them to be Zone 2 if you liked. This one has 3 outputs and one of them is dedicated for Zone 2 out of the box, so you don't have to change anything. Makes it a little bit easier for you. Surround AI, just to give you guys a heads up, this is new this year, and this is a feature that requires an immense amount of processing, and something that's actually been about 2 years in the making in our engineering department. And from my understanding, we're actually on internally our 4th version of Surround AI, and just refining it, making it better, and trying to give the user the best experience possible. So just kind of at its roots, just so you understand, a DSP mode is something that can be overlaid on top of any incoming audio signal, and the idea is that it's supposed to change the sound to make it sound better in some way, shape, or form. So in this case, a cinema DSP mode like, say, sci-fi or adventure, spectacle, the idea behind them is to take a regular size living room, 10 by 12, 15 by 20, whatever that room is, and make it sound like it's a huge movie theater. So you're going to get a lot more spacious sound effects. It's going to sound like there's more speakers coming out surrounding you from everywhere. Really, really does make it a cool experience. But the problem is that a lot of times there's just too many choices. It's kind of information overload. What we want to do is try to focus on just a single DSP mode, and this one being the newest and the most capable one, we kind of want you to veer towards that. So I want you to try this one on your own, and if you guys have a demo room or anything like that, definitely check out the 1080 and above with Surround AI. What it does is it analyzes each scene 5 times a second. And what happens is it's looking for what's going on right now in the scene so it can apply the proper DSP effects to it. So what it happens is if it's a quiet scene, for example, it will look at that and sense that it's quiet, and it will apply the proper DSP mode for, say, dialogue or ambient noise. Um, as it changes to a surround sound effect where there's stuff going on, cars driving by, things like that, where there is any information that's going on all over the place, it can apply a proper DSP mode effect for that. And finally, if it's a really big explosion scene or crashing, car chase where they're just driving in all different directions and there's a lot of sound, it will apply effects for that as well. So it actually goes through one of four different ones, and it tailors it to match the scene. So again, everything is happening in real time. It's analyzing and it's trying to predict what's happening next, all in real time, and giving the customer the best user experience. So what happens is again, every zero point 0.2 seconds, or about 5 times a second, it will go in and analyze the audio signal coming in. It's looking to see what kind of information is there, and also what it knows about. So for example, if it understands that it's a quieter scene, it has a database for that, and it can actually detect, okay, here's what I have to do. And then from there, if it moves into more of an explosion scene, it can apply stuff as well. So again, it's constantly analyzing. There's a lot of processing going on. But what happens is you end up with a real-time, seamless audio track that sounds amazing. And the audio quality on here really, really is top-notch. There's a button on the remote control. It's dead center of the remote control for Surround AI. There's also a button on the front panel as well that will get you into that mode. And it kind of locks you in. So if I press Surround AI and then I start to flip through the different DSP programs, or with the program buttons up and down on the remote, it'll actually tell you that it's not going to, because it's in Surround AI. So you have to press that button again to get it out of there. So we're trying to make people a little bit more restricted on there, because we don't want them flipping through and having to make so many choices. We're truly trying to get them just the best, simplest user experience, but also the best sound quality for that. All right, so moving on as far as features in the 1080, again, this is where the Aventage really kicks into high gear. You're going to find a heavier duty chassis. You're going to find what we call a symmetrical amplifier layout. So all the left channel amps are on the left side, all the right channel amps are on the right side, and you'll find the power supply, capacitors, and everything are nice dead center as far as weight distribution goes. All the boards and stuff are further back. And this is all for the best audio and video experience possible inside the system. So we're trying to separate all the things that are going to cause problems, and we're trying to eliminate them as far as potential issues go. So there's less chance of interference going into the amplification system. So again, that's on the 1080 and higher. On the back panel here, you're going to find that HDMI Zone 2 output. That's on the right-hand side. And as well as, we didn't get rid of the two HDMI outputs on the left-hand side. Those are still there. They're just a symmetrical output. So basically, it will do the same thing on both of those other two, the ones on the left. So main zone and zone B is what we call it. But again, it's just the same as the lower models, where it will be the same source. But on the right-hand side, you can use that HDMI Zone 2 output, and that could be anything that you want to do. Any HDMI source will go out there. The RXA 2080 is our first 9-channel receiver. All the previous models were all 7.2. This is our first 9-channel receiver. It does have the ESS Saber DACs inside of it, similar to the RXA 1080. But what's nice about this one is, because it's a 9-channel system, you have a little bit more flexibility with it. You can have a powered zone 2 as well as a powered zone 3, and that HDMI output can be a zone 2 HDMI out, or it can be assigned to a fourth zone, basically one that's dedicated to just HDMI with no speaker terminals on the back. And that allows you to run into a matrix system or anything for distributed sound and video. You'll also find a little bit better YPOW calibration system. This is the one that comes with the 3D and angle calibration kit. What that does is it allows the receiver to kind of have a picture in 3D space of your living room or of that theater room, that the unit is placed inside of. And this is very, very helpful when you're talking about object-based sound formats like Dolby Atmos or DTS:X. It both works really well with that system. And here's that back panel of the RXA 2080 again versus the 2070 last year is on the bottom there. So again, you're just going to find that dedicated HDMI zone output, and that can be for zone 2, which it is out of the box, or you can assign it to a zone 4, which is just a separate HDMI only output. No speaker terminals for that. So you do have that choice. And again, on the left-hand side, it's just the 2 HDMI outputs that are going to be simultaneous for the main zone. Whatever the main zone is doing, both of those will work. Stepping up to the RXA 3080, this is the highest model that's inside of the Aventage line. We do have a preamp and processor that we're not going to cover today, but as far as AV receivers go, this is the highest model that we have. This is a 9-channel receiver, but it does have the capability of processing up to 11 channels. And that means that I can utilize an external amplifier for my rear presence speakers, which are the rear height channels. I can do that with those, or I can use an external amplifier for my front, left, and right speakers, and then utilize the internal amplification for all the other 9 channels. New this year, we did upgrade the DAC to the latest ESS Sabre DAC inside. This is just a minor refresh. They changed everything on ESS Sabre's side, and we just basically put in the latest and greatest available. So that's all that is. We've had an XLR input before, but now we're adding an XLR output, and this allows you to go to a really nice commercial grade amplifier, balanced out if you wanted to do that for your front, left, and right channels. Let's show you guys the back panel on this. This is again the 3080 this year's versus last year's 3070 on the bottom. So you're going to find that HDMI zone out similar to previous models, as well as that XLR output again for your front, left, and right channels. So you can go into a really nice stereo amplifier for a home AV grade, or if you want, you can go into a really nice XLR input of a commercial grade amplifier as well. And just to kind of cover common features inside of the RXA 80 series, again, all of our Aventage models have a phono input, so it allows you to connect a turntable into there. They all have at least 7 channels of amplification, so there are no 5.1 Aventage receivers that you're going to find here. They're all at least 7 channels of amplification, and of course that always gives you the capability of doing some sort of multi-zone, zone B, zone 2, zone 3, as well as that HDMI zone 4. They all do Dolby Atmos and DTS:X. They all pass through the latest and greatest video formats, HDR, HDR10, including that, Dolby Vision, HLG, which is hybrid log gamma. These are actually becoming more commonplace nowadays, so you're going to start finding the need for HDR and Dolby Vision especially, and the requests for that coming in for able to do that. So just realize that the Yamaha receivers just pass it through. There's no problems at all. We've been able to do that for a couple generations now, so that's not really a big deal for us. All Aventage models also have a aluminum front panel on them, so you'll find that it's a nice cosmetic feature, as well as it does help with the sound quality. You'll notice that all of our Aventage receivers have a 5th foot underneath them. That's in that center mounted foot, and that allows the receiver to reduce the vibrations that are coming from the unit itself, as well as external stuff coming in. And new this year is an advanced foot design for that. It just kind of helps further reduce that vibration that goes in through the receiver. We're trying to make it as good as possible for the system and give it the best possible environment. They all have MusicCast, and we're going to cover a little bit of what MusicCast is and does in just a moment, but it's really important to note that it's not something that's a step-up feature. All of our receivers have MusicCast that have network capability, and of course all Aventage receivers have a network capability, so just something to be aware of in there. you're going to find it, important as you start stepping up into the world of wireless multi-room audio, adding sound bars, adding speakers anywhere in the system. So MusicCast is a nice way to do that. All MusicCast systems control Alexa. So with Alexa, you're going to find that very, very easy to do. We'll cover briefly on some of the commands that you can do for that. New this year, MusicCast Surround. Again, this is just the ability to have wireless rear speakers in a 5.1 system. We'll cover just a little bit kind of scenarios in a few minutes here. The dual antennas, again, it's a 5 gigahertz networking now, so you're going to find 2 antennas on there. We covered multi-zone. Just remember that all Aventage models can do either a zone B, which is the RXA 680, where it can listen to a same source, but another pair of speakers. Zone 2, Zone 3, and of course that HDMI Zone 4. As far as control systems, we are trying to be very compatible with all of our products, including MusicCast. So one of the things that we're working on now is just making sure that any MusicCast product works with any control system you want to use. And for a while now, we've had Control 4 certification on them. We added RTI for MusicCast earlier this year. Again, Alon G is on the newer side, and we're constantly working on more stuff. So if you stop by our booth at CEDIA, you're going to find a few more things as well. And of course, we do remote management, Domo, Tahiji, and others as well. So we're trying to be as compatible as possible with everything. All right, so stepping into MusicCast, that kind of rounds out the AV receiver specific features. And now we're going to talk about MusicCast just for a few minutes. And with MusicCast, if you guys aren't aware of it, it's just Yamaha's proprietary version of a wireless multi-room audio, meaning that if you have a Yamaha soundbar in one room and a Yamaha receiver in another, you can link the two together and play whatever you want to and control it all with a very, very easy to use app, the MusicCast app. We have a lot of products that support MusicCast. You don't have to worry about features and functionality year over year. We try to include as many things in there as we can and try to make them as compatible as possible. So pretty much whatever you're looking for, we do have it inside of MusicCast. The idea is that you can take any room in the house and have a MusicCast product in there, be it a wireless speaker, be it a streaming amplifier, again, soundbar, receivers. Any of our network products at all that we're making right now have MusicCast built into it. So if it's again, a streaming amplifier or a speaker, a receiver, a stereo receiver, they all have MusicCast as long as it has networking built in. Oh, great. And the idea is that they all have kind of a base functionality here. So they all have hardwired Ethernet ports. They all have Wi-Fi built in. They all have Bluetooth capabilities as well. And to be honest with you, one of the nicer features it has is the ability to do Bluetooth output. So with any of these guys here, whatever I'm listening to, inside of the speaker, inside of the soundbar, inside of the receiver, I can not only do Bluetooth into a device, but I could take whatever I'm listening to and go Bluetooth out to a pair of headphones. And that's kind of a nice convenience feature for people who want to listen to headphones. So Bluetooth, AirPlay, internet radio, again, we try to cover as many possible things we can while still bringing you the highest quality sound. New this year is we unlocked the ability to do the room number. So before it was a limit of 10 hardware devices in the system, we've upped that to 32. So all you have to do is make sure that all of your firmware devices or all your devices are running the latest firmware. And at this point, you can now have up to 32 total devices per location. So you can easily add as many things as you need without having to worry about it. And again, this is all done through the MusicCast app available on iOS and the Android Play Store. So just to recall, again, any of our network products support MusicCast. So this includes our wireless speakers, including some of our older ones like the MusicCast WX010 or 030 speakers. We have a few new ones this year, the MusicCast 50 and 20 as well. What's nice about the 50 and 20 is that they both support that MusicCast surround. That's that capability of using a wireless rear speaker or wireless surround speaker in your AV receiver. Sound bars, we do have the YSP 5600 for Dolby Atmos and the YSP 2700. We're also announcing one, I think it's today. I didn't add it into the system, but it's the YAS 408 or MusicCast Bar 400. So do me a favor and check that out on the website. I didn't get a chance to put it in here because we just launched this yesterday, but that product is available now. It hasn't started shipping yet, but it's available on the consumer site. You can see that. And this MusicCast Bar 400 or YAS 408 allows you to do a uh, 499 system with a wireless subwoofer, and it actually supports the MusicCast surround feature as well. So I can add two rear speakers behind me if I wanted to enjoy a 5.1 soundbar setup. So, but as well, these soundbars work as well. Going into the hi-fi products, again, Yamaha is a music company. Everything we do is trying to give you the best user experience and also the best quality sound, and that includes stereo receivers. So we have a couple of our receivers that have networking built in, and they're the RN 803 and 303. We also have a pair of powered monitor speakers. So if you're a studio guy and you're familiar with powered monitor speakers, you'll know that these sound really, really amazing. And also, like I said before, any of our AV receivers. We're into our fourth generation now of AV receivers that have MusicCast built into it. So any of the models or series that are listed here, they support MusicCast, and they all have pretty much everything that you're going to need. Network preamp and amplifiers. Again, these have been out for just a little bit now, I think just over a year. And these are very well received inside the CI community. The WX-A50 and C50 amplifiers work and preamp work very, very well. High quality DACs, great build quality, fantastic ability to be put inside of a rack in here as well. So WX-A50 and C50 are easily there and readily available for you, and great sound quality. As far as our new features this year, the MusicCast 20, the 50, and then the MusicCast Sub 100, that's our wireless subwoofer that does MusicCast as well. MusicCast 20 speaker, you're going to notice something on the box on here, and it's that little icon that says MusicCast Surround or MusicCast Stereo. And that little icon just means that you can utilize this with a receiver or with a soundbar that supports MusicCast Surround. So all the current stuff, the stuff we just talked about, uh, the Bar 400 for the soundbar, as well as all of the new Aventage series and all of the new RXV series, the lower models as well, all support MusicCast Surround. And it's listed there, it's that icon right there. So if I wanted to do a wireless 5.1 and have those wireless surround speakers, I could do that. Just make sure that each of the products has that MusicCast Surround logo. MusicCast 20 speaker is a really, really nice sounding system. We redesigned this thing from the ground up, and actually when we were in Japan talking to the engineers about it, we realized that the guys that we were talking to that designed this product actually came from our hi-fi group in previous projects. So a lot of these guys were really, really audiophile grade engineers. They really loved their sound. They really love tinkering with stuff to make it sound better. And that's one of the reasons why we put them on this project, so we can get these guys sounding as good as possible. And these things really do show that off. So if you're stopping by CEDIA this year, I highly recommend check out our booth. We're going to have a couple demos of that, and you'll be able to hear it in person. You can use these as a single unit by themselves. They come in white or black. And you can also pair them. If you had two of them, you could put them in with that wireless subwoofer as well. So you can really have a rocking system without too much effort. And of course, because they're MusicCast, they support Alexa and everything else. So here's that top shot of it. It does have a built-in alarm feature because it does have a clock. So you have an alarm that you could turn on and off, and as well as three preset buttons on here that you can do. So again, any of our favorites can be recalled through here as well. So just remember that. Here's an internal picture of the MusicCast 20 speakers that you'll have. Notice the passive radiator. It's actually a second one, so there's one on the left side as well as one on the right side of the system. We're able to do that. And again, it supports the MusicCast surround functionality. Because of that, it has a left and right capability as well. You can also have a left and right with that subwoofer. So just as many options as possible for that consumer. So if I want bigger sound, I can put two of them together, or I can put two of them with the subwoofer. And of course, you can use them in a wireless 5.1 scenario as well. We talked about that earlier. The next one up in the line, this is our bigger speaker. This is just kind of meant to be a big room filling system with just a single unit. So lots of bass, lots of sound, and it is a stereo left and right system. So it actually has internal speakers for both left and right on here. You could pair two of them together if you wanted to as well. Obviously it does Alexa and everything else. And it does have those similar preset buttons on the front as well as the alarm functionality from there. Internally, you'll see just again that stereo, so design, so left and right systems on here. It sounds really, really nice for a bigger living room even. For example, in my house, I was able to place this one speaker in the living room and hear sound throughout the whole house pretty easily. Again, I have a larger living room, but it's a smaller house, but it really does resonate quite well through the whole system. And if you look on the back panel of the 50 speaker, you're going to find a lot of good connections inside. Obviously, we still have a hardwired Ethernet port, but we do have other things as well. For example, there's two different types of analog in, as well as a digital optical connection. So if you were going from like your TV, it would work really easily through the system. And again, you can add stereo left and right rear speakers using these, or you can, since it's a stereo system, stereo speaker built in, you can just have one, and it would be useful inside of a wireless 5.1 system. There's that subwoofer that we talked about here. Again, $499 retail. It's going to be a very, very nice, clean looking system that happens to have that wireless capability. So I can place it anywhere in the room, again, with a 5.1 scenario with a receiver, or with any of those two MusicCast speakers that we just talked about. And it does have a nice auto crossover adjustment. So basically it knows what it's being paired to as the master device, and it will do a crossover accordingly. So if it's a full-size AV receiver with big speakers, it knows that it can go full range. If it's one of the smaller speakers, for example, MusicCast 20 that it's paired to, it'll adjust the crossover accordingly. And again, I can use that just inside of a MusicCast surround system with wireless rear speakers and a wireless subwoofer, or I can just do a wireless subwoofer inside of that 5.1 receiver. I don't have to do wireless rear speakers. And just a couple more options on here. Let's just talk about third-party integration real quick, because we are kind of getting towards the end here, and I just want to make sure everybody is covered. I'll make sure we talk about these things. So one of the things that Yamaha really tries to do is be compatible with as many things as possible, whether it's a streaming service or in this case a control system. Now, for years and years, Yamaha's IP controls has worked fantastic. We've had certification through Crestron and RTI and URC, and pretty much any of the top brands all have a control driver for our AV receivers. The problem is that it was limited to just AV receivers. So I couldn't control a sound bar, I couldn't control wireless speaker or a stereo receiver or anything else that Yamaha made through IP. And that was a problem. So because of that, we really wanted to open it up to everything. So what we did was we redesigned our protocol and we created a new one for MusicCast. And that means that every MusicCast product, whether it's a wireless speaker or soundbar or AV receiver, they all support the same type of commands. So a power command for one device is the same as another device. It's no longer different. And they're all created the same. They're all created to be used interchangeably. So what that means now is that all of these systems that you see there, the Alexa, Control4, RTI, Elan, and Fibro, you're actually going to find that they'll control any MusicCast product over IP. So it's not just a stereo receiver or not just an AV receiver, it's any of our MusicCast gear. And this can also be utilized as a single room. So just because it says MusicCast here, for example, doesn't mean that I have to be using more than one Yamaha product in that house. I can use this control with Control 4, with RTI, with Elan, just to do a single soundbar in a room. And that's it. I don't have to do any linking. I don't have to do any feedback for two-way control. I don't have to do any metadata. It's just a single one-room control if I wanted to. So this really does open up our control systems, wide open for anything. So just wanted to kind of cover that as far as a basis of what we're doing. So you're going to find that we're now adding third-party drivers for as many things as possible. So ones available now, again, are up there. We are working on a couple of them that should be around in time for CEDIA. So again, check out our booth if you can in San Diego. We're working on ones for Crestron as well as URC Total Control 2.0. We're also working with other companies as well just to try to make it as flexible as possible. So Simple Remote, usually called Roomy, or Logitech Harmony Series remote controls. I know a lot of you guys are using those on occasional jobs, and we want to be compatible with everything. So just be aware of that we're trying to add these drivers in, and if there's something that's missing, something that you'd like to see for control, just let me know and we'll work together with them and see if we can figure out a way to get MusicCast's control into their system. So just wanted to make sure we cover that and make sure it's as solid as possible. Final thing I want to cover here is Alexa, because there are two Alexa skills that you can utilize. They can be used interchangeably. They work together. They work just by themselves. But there's a MusicCast smart home skill and the regular MusicCast skill. You can give your customers, again, both of them, one of them, it doesn't really matter, but they do slightly different things. The smart home skill is probably the easiest one to utilize, and the commands are very, very simple. It can be as easy as Alexa, turn on the kitchen. You don't have to do any invocation. You don't have to say the word MusicCast in there. You just tell it to turn on the device. The problem with that skill is that it is very limited. Amazon doesn't have anything in there for recalling presets. I don't have the ability to link rooms using the smart home skill. So it's a very, very basic setup just to do a few commands. Skip, volume up, volume down, mute, power on and off, things like that can all be done with the smart home skill. Anything additional, linking rooms together, playing favorites, these can all be done using the MusicCast skill. And the main difference is when you want to call it out, you just have to say, Alexa, ask MusicCast to do this before you get to there. So just remember that. Just to close out here, we talked about a lot of really, really cool stuff very quickly. You guys did get the shortened, abbreviated version of what can sometimes be a 3-hour training. So we try to pack in as much as we can while giving you guys all the important details of this stuff. So there was a little overview for Yamaha. We covered the new models, including the RX-880 series. There was new features, the Surround AI, as well as a dedicated HDMI output on the 1080 and up. MusicCast overview in general, and we also covered the new features inside of there, including MusicCast Surround with the subwoofer and the wireless speakers. And then we covered lastly the third-party control with Alexa. So I wanted to thank you guys all for coming. It is 9 o'clock, so we're going to, at least 9 o'clock in the California time. I want to make sure you guys are settled, everything is fine. We will take some questions afterwards, but I wanted to make sure we did a wrap for everything else before that. So thanks again for coming. Thanks to AllNet for hosting this. Very appreciate your time, and have a good day. We'll go ahead and stick around for questions if you guys have them afterwards.
Okay, Robbie, yes, we did get some questions that came in. We got was a pretty engaged crowd today. Okay, so one just popped up about AirPlay 2. Any plans to implement AirPlay 2 or the timeline?
Well, it's one of those things like with our streaming services, we're constantly looking to do stuff and add them and try to be the most compatible. There's no official announcement yet, but it would make sense for us to do AirPlay 2. I believe right now we're just checking to see how easy it is to implement as far as the hardware supports it and getting the firmware up to date. So no answer as of yet, but it is something we're looking to do as fast as possible. We just haven't made any public announcements yet.
Okay. All right. So we've got a question about the surround AI
Hmm.
functionality on the top models. Can that be incorporated into a scene button?
Absolutely, yes. So scene buttons can do DSP modes, including surround AI. Not a problem.
Perfect. Okay. I've got some questions about the third-party IP drivers
Hmm.
and MusicCast. So, do the third-party IP drivers control volume of non-AVR MusicCast speakers?
Absolutely. So again, the volume commands are the same no matter what the device is now. So if it's a wireless speaker or sound bar or stereo receiver, they all have direct IP control for volume, or you can do volume up or down in whatever steps you want. You can go up step, 0.5 dB or up 5 dB, whatever it is you choose. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there with controlling volume, and it's the same across all MusicCast devices.
Okay, perfect. Um, all right, on the flagship on the 3080, you mentioned that that was our 9-channel receiver.
Hmm.
What is the preamp count on that? Do we have additional, if we want to do, what is the maximum configuration that we can support from that with
So it's
the
a
internal amplifiers plus external preamp
So
outputs
it's a
to
nine
external amplifiers?
channel it's a 9 channel powered receiver, so it has 9 internal amplifiers, but it does have the ability to process up to 11 speakers. So I can do all 11 with an external amplifier, or I can
Okay,
just do nine, up to nine internally, and then I can have an additional 2 channel amplifier for either the front left and right speakers or the rear present speakers.
okay.
So a
So
total of 11.
in Atmos mode, how many height channels can it support?
4. So it's a
Okay,
7.1.4, 7.2.4 system.
perfect. Okay. All right. And then John's follow-up question was about the preamp. I know we didn't even review the preamp on this
Hmm.
presentation, but what's the max config on the big preamp that we currently
Same
still
thing.
have?
It's an 11 channel system.
Okay,
So yeah, it's capable of doing a 7.1.4.
perfect. Okay. Oh, so we got a really good question about the Bluetooth out. By the way, Bluetooth out is one of my favorite things about MusicCast. So if you use Bluetooth out for a local set of like Bluetooth headphones or something like that, while
Mhm.
there's maybe someone else in the room that's not looking to listen to that same music, does the speaker automatically mute itself when you select Bluetooth out?
It does not, and the reason we chose to do it that way is because one of our bigger complaints or requests anyway is to have say a husband and wife couple. Usually they're older. Usually it's the husband that's a little bit deaf and hard of hearing, so they want their headphones up loud, and it's
Okay,
usually the wife that wants to listen to the same system but without the blaring noise. So we allow you to have the receiver do one thing, volume level, and the headphones do a different volume level. So you can mute it, but they are independently controlled. The headphones or
okay,
Bluetooth
perfect.
speaker has their own. And
Okay,
just to kind of piggyback on that, the Bluetooth output is actually being redesigned right now for our new products. So any of these new 2018 products, and they're going to be actually going digital out now. So with the Bluetooth output, right, in previous models, it's always been analog, and sometimes, like with HDMI sources, that can cause a little bit of a delay, meaning that if the audio sounds out of the regular speakers first and then out of the headphones maybe a half second later, with the new digital output it will be in sync because everything is decoded on the headphones now,
oh,
so it'll be even
perfectly.
better. Yeah,
That's perfect. Okay. One more question about IP control.
sure.
So this is specifically about the Elan driver, but I guess it depends on your protocol. Um, is the protocol that you're using for IP control, is that the same for the last few generations of the Aventage receivers? So he basically is asking if once this IP control is available, can you go back and change systems that may have been built with IR or some other method?
Absolutely. So again, with when MusicCast came out, we came out with one protocol to cover absolutely everything. So that means that from the last 4 generations now of AV receivers, anything that has MusicCast, it all has the same command protocol structure. So,
Nice.
something that can be controlled right now, you can always go back in and do something that was IR previously. You can do it to IP. So basically, the RX-850 series and newer. So 50, 60, 70, and now the 80 series, any of them all support the same MusicCast protocol over IP.
Perfect. So Chuck, hopefully that answers your question. A50 and newer. Alrighty. We've got another Yamaha veteran here. He's got an RXA 1060, and he's asking a clarifying question about the new 1080.
Hmm.
So on his 1060, he says the HDMI output can be any HDMI input, regardless of HDMI 1 output. He said, is that no longer the case? HDMI 1 and 2 are mirrored like the RXA 870, and Zone B is now the matrixed HDMI.
So all we did now was on the 1060, which I think is what you said you had previously. On the 1060, we had two HDMI outputs. They are mirrored by default, and the second one can be set up to do HDMI zone 2. So it can do that separate zone. All we
Okay.
did now was we added a third HDMI output that is discrete for zone 2. So now you still get the first two outputs that are mirrored, that are the same zone. We're just
Okay.
giving you a third additional one. So all the same functionality and more
Okay.
is available in the 1080.
Perfect. Okay. It's just now that
You want
that
to use
second
that
one that's
dedicated,
variable is
yeah,
now
that
on
dedicated HDMI
output
out.
3.
You
Okay.
got it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Do the MusicCast third-party IP drivers provide full functionality of uh, streaming services such as Spotify, Pandora, and if not, what features are supported? And I guess
Yep.
this is a pretty common thing. It seems like a lot of streaming services are the the integration directly with the streaming services is getting broken on integration
Hmm.
through the electronics manufacturers.
Yep. Nope. I totally understand the question, and I can answer it very, very easily. The easiest way I can just explain it is that anything you can do from within the regular navigation of the MusicCast app, you can also do from our IP protocol, so the MusicCast protocol. So that means if I'm using, let's say, RTI, in RTI, or sorry, in the MusicCast app, I can browse Pandora, I can search for stations, I can, drill down and do whatever I want. I can do those same things from the RTI control as well. The same thing goes with internet radio. If I can search from internet radio from within the MusicCast app, which I can, then I can also do that from third party without a problem. So the only ones that are kind of an oddball are the ones like, say, Spotify Connect, which don't do the navigation through our app. Instead, they want to do it through the Spotify app, and you have to do through there and then get it playing and then link it to the receiver. So from there, it's the same functionality as the MusicCast app. I can't do for example, I can't do navigation of Spotify, but I can play back a favorite of Spotify. So if I set
Okay.
a Spotify station as one of my favorites, and I got 40 of them, then I can recall those. I just can't navigate in it through, say, RTI or Control 4.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've got another question coming in about the using outboard amplifiers.
Hmm.
So on one of the models, I believe it was the 3080, there are XLR outputs.
Yep.
So those would predominantly be used for front, left, and right, correct? For like an
Correct. That's all
audiophile
it is.
setup?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's just a left and right for the XLR on that particular model.
okay. Um, so in that scenario, does that free up the first two channels of the internal amplification for use in extra surround channels or Atmos?
Absolutely. So again, the 3080 is a 9-channel receiver with 11-channel processing. So if I use an external amplifier for my front, left, and right speakers, XLR or the regular non-balanced pre-outs, that frees that up, and I can use the internal 9 channels to power the rest of my system, and then use my big external amp to power my front, left, and rights. So yes.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. So Follow-up question on the same topic here. When setting up an Atmos system with or without external amplifiers, how do we select which speaker outputs are used for the height channels, or do we just map that in the setup, correct?
It's inside the setup menu, yeah, inside the graphical interface. It'll give you a very clear diagram of what's internal amplification and what is an external amp. And we kind of color code it and everything to make it as clear as we can on there. But again, all you're doing is you're just going into the menu and selecting which option you want.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification on that one. This is a question I don't see very often. Uh, I'm guessing there's a specific room, like or a specific question, like maybe the room was already set up for this on a existing system that had this. Um, will there be any support for the Oro 3D surround platform that has that center height channel, or they call it the
Yeah,
God channel?
the VOG or Voice of God channel. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
And the answer is really no, not at this time. It's just not something we get very much. You know, like you said, it's not a common request. Every year, I stop by Oro and check out what they've got going on, and they talk about all these really great things that they've got coming out that they can't tell me about. And then they tell me all the stuff that they have, which is all the stuff they've had previously, which is mostly like soundtracks for like orchestral music or stuff like that. Not a lot of movies, really, especially in the US anyway, are in that format. And because of that, there's really no reason to add the, $300+ for, processing that they require on that license. So.
Okay. All right. And then also, I mean, from where I was recently before I started back at AllNet, when it came to room design, we talked about uh, immersive all the immersive formats, and it sounded like to truly implement an Oro system correctly, you had to have a kind of a tall room to have basically 3 layers of speakers in that room. And
Yeah, there's a lot
it's
of things
tough to
going
find a
on.
room that's
Yeah.
ideal for 3 layers of height.
And you don't always have to have that VOG speaker with an RO system. It's obviously the request. It's kind of their gimmick, their way of doing it, what they think
Yeah,
is the right way. But yeah, with our system, I don't think it's actually required because you can do the presence channels, what we call them, or just that, the ones that are on the wall in the front of the room, but up higher towards the
yeah.
ceiling, instead of doing an in-ceiling speaker. So you could do it that way. And actually, the Oro guys, every time I go there, they're actually using one of our MXA 5000 amplifiers to power everything. That's
Oh,
our big
nice.
11
Okay.
channel amplifier. So, I mean, they like our stuff, but unfortunately, there's just not a lot of content and not enough demand for it to really justify putting in the functionality in there and then charging everybody for it. So, not at this time. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it would just kick up the cost for a 2% or 3%.
Unfortunately, if that, it's probably around,
Yeah.
0.5%, of people that would actually utilize it. So, but
Okay.
anyway, yeah, not at this time. I mean, again, if it's something that, Oro really takes off and, everything is really, really fantastic and they're coming out with all this content and consumer demand shoots up, obviously we're going to relook at that, and see and make sure if it's worth it. But at the moment, there's just not enough demand, not enough content for it.
Okay, so it looks like we have one last question here, and this
Sure.
is about, again, back to scenes. So can the power on input or scene be prioritized?
Uh, I'm not sure about prioritize, but the answer is that you can tell it what you want it to do specifically. So inside of the scene setup menu, and this is where it'd be like nice to have a live training because I can show you in the menu real quick. But there's a scene settings area, and with that you can tell it which functionality you want it to recall. So if I didn't want to power it on, I didn't have to. I just unchecked the box for power on. And if I did want it to power on, I leave it checked. So, and I can recall power, input, DSP, HDMI out, volume level. There's a real slew of settings that I can do. So I can't necessarily prioritize it in the way that I don't want it to power on first. I want it to power on last in the command. But it's one command that will recall all those settings at the same time. So I'm not sure I understand what the priority request is, but it will do all those or none of them. I can uncheck every single box except for volume, and I can just have that scene command recall only the volume if I wanted to. And
Okay.
obviously, if the receiver was already on, it wouldn't power itself off when you hit the scene command. It would stay on, so you wouldn't get that like duplicate command or something like that. It wouldn't act funny.
Okay. Dave, if you have any additional, if you'd like to discuss this, we can take this offline. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'll pass you
Yeah,
through to Robbie, and we'll
yeah,
also put you in
absolutely. I can
contact with
explain it.
Jim Laris, who's in the market there. So this is a dealer that I know who this is. He's in Illinois. So Jim's right there in his backyard.
Yep.
So, all right. I think that's all. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to type them in quickly. We're coming to the end here.
Yeah, I can hang around for another few minutes and see if we get anything else. That's not a problem.
Yeah. Robbie,
As always.
we had a really good session today. I love it when it goes long because it means that everyone was engaged and we had a bunch of questions. So
Yeah, no, and you
less
guys always
training.
do really well. Every time I do a live training over at your place, everybody's real top notch, and these questions are just indicative of that as well. Nothing was basic, nothing. You guys already have a really good base knowledge of Yamaha gear, and now you're just asking these fine tuning questions, that really get you up just to the next level. So I always appreciate stuff like this.
Well, I think that's the whole purpose of what we're doing because I think that probably most of these dealers who are on the call today were familiar with the Yamaha receivers, and now it's just a matter of pointing out what's new. So I'm glad that I got to sit in on this myself. Is just kind of as the host, I get to sit here and listen. So um,
Yeah, no,
all
I
right,
totally understand.
I don't see any more new questions. Oh, Alan asked a question about the recording. So yeah, Alan, since you came in late, the recording will be available. We'll have it posted probably a week to 10 days. We'll have it up. So we're a little bit behind on getting some of our archives posted, but I'll make sure that we share it with you. Okay, I don't see any more questions here. So everyone, thank you for taking the time to join us today.